Hi there. For the past several months, I've been working on my manuscript of my own process, development. In this autobiography, I'd like to present to you personal thoughts on my development, state of actualization, if you will, um, awakening to consciousness. That being said, I'd like to speak about what I'd like to do is bring you these videos, um, beginning with this particular video and the ones previously made, that speaks about my personal journey as a spiritual sojourner, a yogi, a Vedantist, both tradition of the West and the East, but mainly to describe to you what it means to experience in the journey a spiritual awakening, if you will. That awakening that alludes to the depth of consciousness within. I like to offer you this in this brief orientation, this brief video. What my aims are, what the goals are, and basically map it out for us. And in that, this manuscript that I have been working on for several months, if not longer, um, on a daily basis, practically, that speaks about the play of consciousness, this value of dynamisms on a personal level, but also on a universal level as well. That being said, I've got my notes here that I would like to refer to and offer you some thoughts about what I'd like to speak about. As I mentioned before in previous videos, that the value of consciousness had begun for me personally prior to this lifetime. And so one would wonder, what does that mean prior to a physical lifetime? So at this point, I'm giving us an orientation in terms of where to start. And that beginning begins with the Word. And so you have in the Gospels and the Scriptures, both East and West, that there's a particular saying that the Word, the light, the manifestation of that light is based on the Creator's playfulness. So we begin at the beginning of consciousness, in which, on a personal level, can speak to. And so it speaks about how have you begun in your process. I, for one, can offer this pathway to describe to you the nature of consciousness, the value of manifest elements that helps that consciousness to unfold further. So I'm speaking about nurturance as well. So nature and nurturance is very important to the development emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically, the inroads to the rest of your life. And so this video will pertain to an orientation, a mapping, if you will, step by step. What am I addressing here? Well, what is being addressed here is an orientation to what it means to unfold. What does this self-actualized process look like? And then again, for me, on a personal level, I can speak to the dynamics of precognitive thought. That wavelength prior to being cognitively aware of anything. So it's the unconscious manifestation of the non-cognitive pattern of being. So for me, I'm understanding this by saying that it is a process that we all are going through. And I think I hit it at the gate where I'm understanding the elements of nature, of consciousness, of self-actualization, patterns that lead to the next gate, if you will, the next doorstep, the next line of procession of events that in one's lifetime one will unfold, hopefully, to reach that point of return. And what I mean by that is that point of return suggests to us that in our lifetimes we can have in our personal practice spiritual called sadhana, our personal sadhana, whether in a Western tradition or an Eastern tradition, or whatever the soul has chosen for a tradition to help us come back to where we began. Because where we began, as I noted earlier, for me, saying that out of the void, there was an awakening. For me, in this point of reference, this point of orientation of thought, began with a non-cognitive thought pattern. So when I heard, while I was in samadhi, this state of consciousness that offers us no thought, a placement that offers us a perpetual state of being prior to birth. Now, what I'm talking about is my personal process that I can speak to. And others may have a different process to experience and speak to. Now, I'm speaking about where it began for me, as opposed to where it began for you, can be totally different. It's like when you leave your physical body from this world, you go into a different, as the Tibetans say, particular bartel of being. There are three bartels on the physical side, there are three on the other side of life. And so with that, when in this placement of samadhi, I was only aware of a non-cognitive pattern of consciousness. That is, essence, being. This is the point where I heard Now, this is interesting because this gives us an understanding that when one is preparing to come out of samadhi for the service of the Creator, in other words, I volunteered for this journey that this physical body has incurred in this world, and have manifested many, many experiences, both physically, cosmically, emotionally, spiritually, that over the period of time has allowed me to come full circle. Now, I'd like to get back to the statement that was offered me. This statement that caught my attention began to offer a cognitive pattern. So I have to think, well, why was it a non-cognitive pattern before the cognitive pattern manifested? This is the difference between non-being, experiencing essence, this placement of samadhi, to preparing to come out of that state of consciousness, to come into the cognitive awareness, that one begins to discern what was being asked of me, of my soul. Those words were, he needs a volunteer. That was repeated several times over because coming out of this placement of almost comatose state of being, that from a distance I heard that he needs a volunteer, but it was coming closer and closer to my awareness. And so that being said, I was coming out closer and closer to the realization that I was to hear what was being said. Now, there is a variance in differences in terms of hearing non-physically versus hearing physically. We've got the physical body, the apparatus, to match the physical appreciation of the words. However, prior to birth, there is this level of consciousness that says it is the play that is beginning to unfold. So I responded, I should say my soul had responded by saying, who needs a volunteer? So I said that, and I said it again, who needs a volunteer? And the words that came back several times, in fact, he, with a more pronounced opinion manifesting, he needs a volunteer. So I understood that as he, being the creator, needs a volunteer. So you could say I was just hanging around, and souls are hanging around out there in, Akasha land or space land, and doing their thing. For me, I was understanding that I was being called out of samadhi to come into this play of consciousness. Excuse me. To begin discerning what he needs a volunteer actually meant. So in this video and subsequent videos that will be happening more often now that my manuscript is almost complete, I'm looking at my notes and would like to map out for you what does this all mean? So at this point, we're offering you an orientation to the play of consciousness on a personal level that I can speak about directly. And so we look at that and ask ourselves, okay, what is the goal? The goal is to understand the purpose. So we're getting closer and closer to what is happening. So with those words, there was a complete complete understanding that there was no fear involved whatsoever, because it was an immediate acknowledgement that I would be volunteering to come to Earth. I was showing the map. I was been shown the map. I'd been shown the contract, if you will. And it was like signing a contract. Okay, sign here on the dot. At the same time, we had many, many brown souls who were around me, clapping, because I was agreeing to do this. Agreeing to what? I don't know, except one thing. I would be discerning step by step as I went. So it was just the matter of saying yes. Yes, to this, he needs a volunteer. Unquestionably, absolute, without hesitation. So it is the mapping out that one is coming into a karmic pattern based on the dharmic call. So each of us are experiencing the karmic and dharmic unfoldment at the same time. So these headings, the value of karma says that there is an action, and based on that action, there is a reaction. So manifesting whatever, however, and wherever, typically karma will be behind the story. Now, in my case, I'm operating from a dharmic value. Nevertheless, it doesn't speak about not picking up karmas along the way, because one does when one is born. So you're acting out most recent karmas. If there are karmas involved, typically there will be. And so we come to, how do we understand why one is born? What are the reasons? And what does the pathway offer us? How do we discern? So each of us, all of us, no matter what, animate or inanimate objects, are going through what one needs to go through in order to come full circle. So that being said, we have an understanding to our purpose. It's to unfold our karmas and to experience our dharmas. So it is an approach to our personal knowledge that we have within our own state of consciousness that we may not be completely aware of. Now, what will help us along the journey is the experience in itself, whatever experience that curtails, the experience of whatever you think about currently, whatever you are experiencing currently. It is a value that will interconnect us with relatives, relations on all levels, both personal and intrapersonal levels, um, that will help us gain awareness by almost turning on the light, if you will, to each inner dynamic button that we need to press. It's like going up and down the elevator, all the chakras, step 1 through 7. Pick your button, boom. That could be the heart, emotional, could be the throat, how you communicate, how you inspire others or don't. Many different experiences. People speak and may not speak, are blind, cannot hear, all kinds of karmic issues that all of us are engendering the value to unfoldment towards this, which I call return. And so this return is, in fact, the return to essence, the return to self that is within. And so the process of becoming is actually the process in living our near life experience. So once again, the goal is to provide a view, in other words, of a lifetime of experience that one is unfolding daily towards this self-actualization, towards this self-realization, in a way that offers us this universal awareness. Through our personal sadhana, our personal meditation, our practice may allude to states of consciousness that we are becoming more aware of in our personal lives. That each moment of our meditation offers us the depth of being, the depth of focus, the depth of awareness. And so I'd like to offer you this personal point of view that I can speak directly to, as I mentioned. So it's an orientation to a personal knowledge related to fields of integrated knowledge that we have within, so that we can experience a life of pure love, pure devotion, pure love that is eternal. So we are actually witnesses as we process this directly. And so through the certain applications of our process, as I mentioned, our meditations, our pranayamas, we become clarified towards increasing the value of consciousness. As we decrease the value of anxieties and stress in this world, we increase the value of consciousness. That is to take us to a lighter side of awareness. So for me, on a personal level, once again, coming to acknowledging the call. And so I'm beginning with this video by saying it is the call. that one responds to unquestionably, to come into unfolding what needs to be manifested, addressed, integrated, discerned. In that return, come to wholeness within self. And so my personal background allows me to express and to share my personal divine process, dharmic process. Once again, that doesn't go without saying that I have karmas that I'm working on in this lifetime. But I didn't come into this lifetime based on karmas. My personal karmas before this lifetime was 99.9% complete. And so I'm here to teach. That is the principal thing that I want you to know. That I'm here to teach, and in that teaching, we can help the world, our communities, in healing to some degree. Because currently, it is the time to activate coming into and out of the lens of no action. It's really important now because the universal astrological calendar has shifted to such a degree that we are currently going into a state of chaos. And we've been in a state of chaos for a long, long, long time. Now we are at a point of change, 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 and it's going to be a drastic change. So we're seeing it as we've got, on a political level, you can see what is occurring. On the emotional level, you can see. On the spiritual level, religion, everything is toppling down, crumbling at the wayside, and will crumble some more. And there's this reason why it's crumbling, because it's not true. This is the reality. That reality of self, that reality of essence wants to come out, wants us to become true to our nature, come back to ourself, come back to our essence. Because the universal consciousness, that universal wheel called astrology, that universal mapping out, if you look up into the skies, the astronomers have discerned, well, that is Leo, that is Scorpio, that is Capricorn, Capricornus, that is whatever, blah, 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 and they mapped it out. Astronomically, they have allowed us to see the mapping of astrology. And so what the ancient astronomers have done for us is to perk our interest. Because the universal flow of consciousness is not only out there in the universe, it's that universe and that flow of consciousness, that play of consciousness that Muktananda speaks about, is within. And this is how we will succeed. It is within. Meanwhile, our within is in turmoil because of our own ego body. We only believe in the physical apparatus. We only believe in what we need to believe in. And we're in chaos. We are almost, I like to look at what we are going through in the world, in the United States, as going through not a midlife crisis. We are going through the states of a schizophrenic break. And this is true. The United States, you can see clearly as an example, it's losing its mind, has lost its mind. The United States is in chaos. They're crazy. People are crazy. Listen to the people who are, uh, shooting up people. Well, you've got some organizations that support that, but you have others who are listening to the value of this consciousness that I'm speaking about, that are discerning. Oh, we need to catch up to turn this craziness, the cycle of illusion, the cycle of uh, anxiety, and the cycle of psychosis. We need to turn that around. But the question is, how do we do that? And so this is my experience to process this with you, because I've already have written my manuscript, and it's almost coming to completion. It takes a lot of time and effort to write a book, especially on a placement of an autobiography that speaks about the level of consciousness and, as I mentioned, the nature of being, the meaning and construct of being, our orientation and our focus. What is the focus? And how do we understand our goals? And how do we understand our purpose? We can't understand our purpose, or we cannot understand our meaning, because we are in chaos. We are in the process of becoming psychotic. We are in the process of becoming schizophrenics, because we already are. So my personal background allows me once again to express and to share this process, this sadhana, if you will, to expand this play of consciousness, my own personal study of consciousness that has helped me over the years, for the past 35, 40 years of constant practice, to integrate a personal realization background in detail to my own personal knowledge. It's not mine to own. It is not my personal bank, in other words, that I own. It is yours. It is the same as mine. There's no difference. The fact is that I turned on the light first, or ahead of you. And so those that are listening now have turned on the light. And they're looking at a different room. A new light, a new lens has opened up. And so I'm here to help. I'm here to teach. I'm here to guide you. In this lifetime, I have become a chaplain, non-denominational chaplain, but I'm also a yogi, if you haven't noticed already. A yogi in the Vedantic tradition and the Eastern tradition. So I'm able to guide you both East and West, the spiritual tradition that I offer guidance for others. Once again, my aim is to help you towards self-inquiry. In this self-inquiry, and in my manuscript, this is what I've written about. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was light. In the beginning was a process that manifested my own awareness at the time of pre-birth, in the womb. And then upon birthing, there was an acknowledgement of awareness. I understood. And it began, this inquiry began the moment I came out of the womb. Well, actually, it was right before. That impressed me, I think, the most at the start. And that I'll talk about later in terms of what I remember in the womb and how that affected me in the process of growing emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. So what has been required of me was an effort in this learning process that I needed to be more active in listening and striving to know more actively. So throughout my life, I've gained the awareness through the process of asking, listening, meditating, mantra, pranayama, prayer. And I'll offer you how to pray as well, because 99% people don't know how to pray. And so what does that mean? It means that we're going to approach levels at the heart, levels at the mind that are in conflict. And so how do we pray? We're going to be emotional. And that's going to trigger a faulty mental scenery. And so the evangelical mental scenery is based on emotions, based on their own issues, blah, blah, blah. That's just an example. I won't go into it further because they're not ready to hear this. So, once again, looking at my notes, I may have already said and I think I've said what I wanted to say, and I noticed that we're coming to close in this particular video, but I wanted to have time that allows me to gain some footing that will offer some clarity so that we can come through to fruition through our personal journey, through our personal work, through our personal inquiries. And that I'm hoping that as the videos come out one by one, and hopefully there'll be more sooner than later. Now is the time that is given. It is appropriate for me. I've got the material, and so you'll see more of me. And in these videos, more of the teachings. So we'll talk about the introduction to self-integration and what that means. So to conclude, I talked about having almost a a right attitude toward self-inquiry, that you can acquire your certain gifts through this self-inquiry by way of meditation, by way of quieting the heart, quieting the mind, and bringing those two together. We'll talk about that as we go. So, as a primary care provider to the spiritual level, it is important to think and to know that one has the ability to come to an integrated state towards empathic listening to one's journey. And as we know, that all spiritual caregiving begins with the self. So self-caring is key here. Without personal relationship to oneself, it would be a challenge to help others. So with that, I'd like to end this video, and thank you for listening to me, and in time, you'll get to know exactly what I'm talking about. And so this is a brief introduction to play of consciousness and how that may help you down the line will be evident, I assure you. Namaste, God bless you, and once again, stay on track. Bye-bye for now.